Imagine this, a girl walks into a garage, not knowing she's about to confront a werewolf. But not just any werewolf, this one's got a heart as warm as his engine. Join me as we dive into a world where grease meets fur, and love blooms in the most unexpected places. This is the tale of Zoe and Warner, and trust me, it's a ride you won't want to miss. Part 46. Warner, how are the cuts? Zoe waves her hand toward my chest. Because I'm still reeling. My brain decides the best way to answer is to pull up my shirt to show you already completely healed gouges. Zoe leans in close, her eyes tracing over the pink scar tissue where the mountain lion gotten a few good hits. Fascinating, she murmurs. My skin grows warm under her close gaze. Her scent seeps into my nose. So strong I taste the sweetness on my tongue. My mind starts to drift into a dreamlike state where I can float happily along and pretend she'll never walk away. When Zoe straightens, she tilts her head to the side, staring down at me. The corner of her lip twitches, and I home in on the movement. The sparkle of her piercing hypnotizing. You like taking your shirt off around me, don't you? Is she flirting? Hope heats my chest as I let my clothing settle back into place. Maybe I'm hoping you'll do something about it one of these days. Now both of the corners of her mouth twitch, but she twists her lips until the movement disappears. Do you mind if Zoe glances around the shop? Her eyes resting on a still off to the side, one that's supporting a box of greasy, used drags, seeing as how she's wearing a dress the same white as the tablecloth of her 5-star restaurant. I expect her to dismiss the option as a seat, but she moves toward it. No, wait. I jump up from my stool, making as if to grab her and keep her away from the mess, only to realize at the last second my hands are covered in motor oil. I hold them up, skipping backwards so I don't ruin the glorious image of Zoe in her pristine outfit. Just here skirting around her. I reach for the box of rags myself, but lifting it only reveals dark smears on the metal seat. That won't work. What's the matter? Zoe's voice next to my shoulder has me jumping away again, clutching the container of dirty rags to my chest. Is that stuff expensive? She moves closer, her head bent to peer into the box. No. This stuff is garbage. Then why are you hugging it? I'm not. Zoe smirks. She's right. I am hugging them. I drop the box and kick it under a workbench. Can we sit now? Or do you have more garbage to embrace? Her eyes twinkle and one of her perfectly clean hands reaches for the stool. No, don't. Again, I lunge in between the offensive seat and the perfect woman, using my body as a shield and trying to hurt her back. Zoe stops attempting to get at the stool. She stares resolutely up at me. The glitter's gone from her eyes, leaving behind sadness. I thought this might be how it went. And I understand. You don't want me here. I promise I'll go. Just after not want you here. Are you fucking with me? She flinches back. And I regret how harsh my words came out. I'm flustered. My wolf is agitated. And the combination is turning me into an ass. Of course not. But you clearly don't want me to sit with you. Her wave takes in me and the stool I'm blocking. No, that's not. I trail off, a frustrated growl clawing at my chest. But letting the animalistic noise out would only make things worse. Just give me a minute to say my piece. I swear I'll leave you alone after I'm done. You'll never have to see me again. She crosses her heart with a finger as if making a solemn vow. Zoe leaving is the worst outcome I can think of. I'd rather have her in this room, shouting at me. I'm dirty. My oil-stained hands come to rest on my hips. This whole shop is dirty. And you're walking in here wearing white like some kind of perfect fever dream. I'm just trying to keep you from ruining your dress. Silence stretches between us as Zoe examines my face. She must pick up the sincerity because the upset fades from her gaze. Can I see? Reaching forward, her fingers wrapping around my wrists, she raises them up, taking a close look at my filthy palms. The nails are crusted with grime. My skin appears dark and uneven under the coat of motor oil. Even now I can see traces of the black rubbing off on her fingers. Any second, Zoe will wrinkle her nose, loosen her grip, and ask where sink with soap is. At least, that's what most people would do. It's my fault for forgetting that Zoe isn't most people. Before I can stop her, she presses both of my palms against her boots. Part 47 Warner. What are you doing? I choke, snatching my hands back even as they beg to stay where she put them. Zoe glances down at her dress, a smile creeping over her lips as she eyes the black prints now marring the pristine white fabric. A snort escapes. Then the next moment, she's doubled over in laughter. The happy sound rings through the shop, bouncing off every surface. I want to laugh with her. I want to moan at the loss of her perfect dress. I want to drag her into my arms and kiss her senseless. I hold myself back because I'm still not sure where we stand. Clearly, Zoe isn't terrified of me, which I take as a good sign, but that doesn't tell me much. It's completely possible she convinced herself that night was a dream or a fear-induced hallucination. If that's the case, I'll have to decide if the best option is to just let her continue living a normal life, oblivious to what my truth is. Zoe calms down, shaking her head at me as she walks back to the bike I was working on. A step behind. Sit, she instructs me, and I drop down on the low crate I was using as a seat. I expect her to grab the greasy stool, but she ignores it to come stand in front of me. I have to look up at her from this angle, and my eyes are level with the destructive handprints. I can't believe your dress. I mourn the loss. Laundry isn't one of my skill sets. Usually just proud of myself when I separate lights and darks, but I still know that grease and white clothing don't mix. No matter how good the shape of my hands look clasping her chest. Don't worry about it. I got it from a thrift shop, and I think it shrunk last time I washed it. Half the buttons are ready to pop off. Now that she mentions it, I do notice how the material strains more where it covers her chest. The sight makes me want to moan for a whole other reason. A cool finger hooks under my chin, tilting my head up until I meet her warm brown eyes. Werewolves. No selective amnesia then. I clear my throat. Yep, werewolves. She grins down at me, the expression sheepish and beautiful enough to make my heart hammer loud in my ears. I'm sorry I went robot on you. Robot. I hesitantly return her grin. I had some misguided autopilot setting to think stabbing myself was a good idea. The reminder of Zoe holding that knife covered in her own blood has the happy emotions in my chest fizzling out. My eyes flick to her arm where the stitches are visible. At least I'm not picking up any scent of infection. Yeah, werewolves can smell that. You were scared. I short-circuited. A robot that lost its batteries. Completely shut down. You were scared. And I'm sorry. Her fingers play with the hair that curls on my forehead. The movement is so searing. I almost lose my train of thought. But I catch hold of it. You're apologizing to me. How could she think there's anything she needs to say sorry for? I'm the one who fucked up. Yes, and I bought you an apology gift. Zoe, stop. You don't. But just like the night I met her, she ignores me as she rummages through her bag. And, once again, she pulls out some kind of crochet creation. It's a scarf. She leans forward, laying the item around my neck. As far as scarves go, it's not the best. The ends barely fall past my shoulders and one side still has a crochet hook stuck in it. Not that I care. I love it. Liar. She smiles and goes to take it back. But I lean away from her, wanting to keep the gift. Zoe slaps my chest lightly, laughing as she does. Stop it. I'm not done with it. I just started this morning when I realized I needed to apologize. But I didn't think my crochet speed should dictate when I tell you I'm sorry. I sit up straight again, letting her remove the scarf. You keep saying you're sorry, but you don't need to. How you reacted, that's reasonable. I should be happy you didn't try drowning me in holy water. Zoe tucks the craft back into her bag before looking at me. You're right. I need to stop saying sorry. Her fingers land on my lips when I go to speak, and I need to start saying thank you. A gentle growl sneaks out before I can stop it, rumbling against her hand. Her mouth opens with a little gasp, But she swallows and pushes on. We were in danger that night. And you protected me. Zoe bends at the waist, bringing her face close to mine and threatening to overwhelm me with her intoxicating scent. Thank you. Fingers drop away, only to be replaced by her sweet lips. She brushes a gentle kiss against my mouth at first. A happy hum spills out of me, which seems to give her permission to lean forward and wrap her arms around my neck, to straddle my lap, to drive me fucking wild. Part 48. Zoe. Making out with Warner was not part of the plan, but I think it's a fantastic addition. I meant to just brush my lips against his. A quick thank you. But once I get a taste, I'm a ravenous shark scenting blood. Okay. Not the sexiest metaphor, but seeing as how I want to consume Warner, I still think it's apt. He groans my name against my mouth as I settle on his lap. My thighs spread and circling his hips so I can press closer. My dress rides up, leaving just the thin cotton of my underwear as a barrier between my center and his rough jeans. My name on his lips is like hearing my favorite song on the radio. I want to hit replay, but no, I have no control over when I'll hear it again. So I enjoy it while I can. My fingers tangle in his soft hair. My tongue traces the seam of his mouth. My hips rock, pressing into his groin. He gets hard beneath my onslaught, and a stab of guilt trips through me at the realization, so quick and painful that I tear my lips away from his. Warner flirts and charms, and he's given me a few kisses in the past, but that doesn't mean I have free range to maul him. Hell, I'm attacking you, bracing my hands on his shoulders. I try to rise from his lap, which turns out to be a much harder maneuver than getting there, probably because I don't want to go. An unhappy growl pairs with claspy hands on my ass, holding me in place. When I stop trying to get up, Warner buries his nose in my neck, and I can feel him breathing against me, his hot breath raising goose and all over my skin. You're not scared of me. His whisper comes out hoarse, and arousal threatens to choke me at the feel of his mouth moving against my throat. Knowing you, his fingers flex, gaining better purchase on my but want him. My imagination takes hold, playing out the rest of this scenario. How he'd reach in between us to unzip his jeans. Then, after pulling my underwear to the side, he'd push into me, and I would get to ride him all the way to Orgasm Town. The fantasy makes me lightheaded, and I almost forget to answer. But when he pulls his head back to meet my eyes, my abrupt, crone nature takes hold. I want to have sex with you. When do you get off work? And do you want to have sex? I'm not sure how I handle a rejection, but it's better to get a clear answer up front. Warner blinks, and his hands relax, but they don't push me away. He trails his touch up and down my back, as if to soothe me. Oh no, here comes that clear rejection. I'm not at work. Harvey lets me use his garage to store my projects. He nods over my shoulder at the gutted bike. We can leave whenever you want. So that's a yes. Now. I want to go now. Warner's mouth curls into a breathtaking smile, as if I've just told him he's won the lottery. Not that I'm giving myself airs. But just as fast as it appears, the joy on his face begins to dim. Know what's happening in your head? My fingers press into his cheeks as if I can force that glorious smile back on his face. A chuckle sneaks out of his chest, but his eyes contain a wariness I want to make disappear. The guy stares at me with his mouth slightly agape, which just reminds me of how good he tasted. Not like any food, more like salt and heat, and hell in a hand basket. I am hot, feverish really. When I left the cabin wearing a dress, I dealt with the chill of the fall day by blasting the heat in the truck and trying to stay in the sunnier spots when I was outside. But now that I've twined myself around the living furnace that is Warner, the combined heat of his body and raging force of my lust threatens to melt my brain. Without warning, Warner stands, clutching me to him with his hands on my ass. Once he's upright, he loosens his hold so I slide down his body. My legs wobble as I gain my footing, and I learn that it's possible to get drunk on another human, or a supernatural creature, normally chatty. Warner is giving me nothing back, and his silence starts to pluck at my introverted anxiety. This is one of the reasons I'm prone to turn into a hermit. No one can refuse to talk to you when you're alone. They can't hurt your feelings if you never try to be their friend, or invite them into your bed. My melted brain starts plummeting into the realm of self. Dalton formulates an escape plan. I'm so befuddled by Warner's nearness. The only get-out idea that I can think of is run. Just as I take an unsteady step toward the exit, Warner's palm presses into my lower back, and he drops his head to whisper in my ear. Yes, you can be on top. If I minded that, then I wouldn't deserve your time. We'll definitely do doggy style. I'll buy a mirror if I have to. And werewolves have sex like humans. Except that I have more stamina. So you'll have to let me know when you need to take a Gatorade break. Oh shit. I may have just come. I can fix it. A gruff voice announces, shocking me out of my lust inferno. The owner of the shop, Harvey I think Warner called him, lets the door swing shut behind him as he enters the garage. Thank goodness I didn't succeed in fucking Warner here. Still, an awkward silence descends over our group when Harvey's eyes land on me, and his face gets a deer in the headlights look. I glance down at myself, remembering the handprints on my boots. In the last few minutes, I have acquired a variety of stains on my dress. There are streaks on my waist and the skirt where I pressed up against Warner, and I'm betting I have a few more clear handprints on my ass. But who cares? I'm about to fuck the guy. So what if the foreplay got a little dirty? Harvey clears his throat and a frown mars his whiskered face. Your talk go well. It's not Warner starts. But I cut him off. Just look at me. I twirled to show off the variety of oil stains on my once pure white dress. Of course it did. I end my display by letting all my excitement for what's about to happen infuse my grin. Now if you wouldn't mind letting me know the damage, we can get settled up. And then I can take Mr. Hans way home with me. Part 49's Are We Careful? The word is shrieked at me the moment my butt brushes against a hard object. Freezing mid-sit. I glance to the side and find a familiar-looking woman steadying a plastic box that rests precariously close to the edge of the table. Should I sit somewhere else? The Sip and Stitch group has commandeered a large table toward the back of the Wild Rabbit again, and I'd gone for the first free chair. No, don't be ridiculous. I came here for you, so we gonna. Just don't knock over this box unless you want to spend the next hour picking up sequins. The glimpse of sparkle reminds me who I'm in a half crouch next to. As I settle in the chair, I examine the woman I glimpsed the first night I met Warner. She's gorgeous with her strong features and dark eyes. The tanned skin on her cheekbones is colored rosy, like she spends plenty of time in the sun. Today, her black hair wraps around the top of her head in a braid crown, and I admire the little turquoise drops that dangle from her ears. You keep checking me out. I'm gonna tell Warner he has some competition. She gives me a saucy wink, making me smile wide. You're friends with Warner. Best friends. Oh, the embarrassing childhood stories I could tell. She sets down what I realize now is a cowboy boot, and holds out her hand. I'm Courtney Bentley, glad to finally meet you. When I clasp her hand, rough caluses brush my palm. Apparently, vibrant footwear and out of season AZ Dukes doesn't preclude a girl from working hard. Good to meet you too. Even as I pull my current project, the apology scarf, I'm almost finished out of my bag. I study Courtney from the side of my eye. My curiosity is fueled by one question: is she a werewolf? Courtney spends time at the rabbit hole, but she doesn't seem to be a member of the Dark Moon Riders. Does every wolf in town have to be a biker too? Could she be one of the townspeople who are in the know? None of these questions are things I can just blurt out, so I search for a way to approach the topic innocently. You said you've known Warner since you were kids. Courtney nods, a big grin on her face. I hung out with him and Roderick when we were little tykes. Their mom's house is down the road from mine. He was as charming then as he is now. Quick to laugh. Amy Spencer offers, smiling across the table at as her fingers roll a needle in a cross-stitch project. Courtney leans close, muttering only to me, quick to tear up. Too sorry to tell you. But you're shacking up with a notorious crybaby. I snort, turning my head to whisper back. Noted. I'll make sure to treat him gently. Her eyes glitter as they meet mine, and I return to my original goal. So, I guess you know a lot about him. All his moods. Hill. I suck at this. Clearly, I was not made for the life of a detective. Still, Courtney's stare loses an ounce of humor, sharpening as her brows dip. I do. Her shoulder bumps mine as she leans in closer. Like how animalistic he can get. She knows. And I never expected to feel such intense relief. But here she is. One more person who knows the truth about the guy I like. A potential friend that I could have an honest conversation with. Keeping my voice low, I hold her eyes, trying to convey that I'm in the know. Two and you. Do you get animalistic sometimes? A wicked smirk curls her lips. Hill. Yes, she is a wolf. Hey Zoe. The sound of my name pulls me out of the delight of discovery. But when I turn to find Juliet hovering just behind my chair, more joy flowers in my chest. You made it. My friend smiles, but her lips pinch at the expression, and her eyes flicker around the busy restaurant. Clearly something is stressing her, but I'm not sure what. Maybe she just has new person too. The group jitters. Well, as this is only my second sip, end stitch. We can be newbies together. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. Sit down. Did you bring something to work on? When I climbed up to the treehouse earlier today to text Juliet about tonight's meeting, I hadn't received a response before I grew bored and returned to the reception, this wasteland that is my grandmother's cabin. Unsure of Juliet's crafting interest, I brought some extra yarn and hooks. I did. The librarian settles in the chair to my left and reaches into her bag, coming out with a shoebox. There's a rustle when she sets it on the table and pulls off the lid. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. Courtney asks, practically shoving her boobs into my shoulder to stare around me and get a better view of the colorful collection of cardstock. What are you making? Greeting cards. Juliet holds up one that has a beautifully detailed mountain scene rendered from carefully cut and layered paper. I have more than I'd ever need. She blushes, as if admitting a failing. Lovely. You're so talented. This comes from a woman across the way from Courtney. You just moved here not too long ago, do I have that right? The end of May. Juliet murmurs, her focus on a set of scissors in her hands while her shoulders grow tense. That long ago. My goodness. Can't believe we haven't been introduced. I'm Karen Hansen. The rest of the women around the table rattle off their names, but from the familiar tone of few use I can guess they've run into Juliet at the library. I get the sense that Juliet would rather not be the center of conversation, but Ms. Hansen doesn't seem happy with a simple hello. And I believe I heard you were unattached. Have you been out with any of Pinefall's nice young men? I'm so surprised by her question I drop my bowl of yarn, then stifle a curse as I try collect it off the floor before it gets dirty and tangled. Juliet also flinched, tearing the delicate tissue paper she'd been cutting. I'm actively not dating right now, the librarian states, conviction adding an edge to her tone. Miss Hansen opens her mouth. But Courtney's faster, actively not dating. What does that mean? The wolf tries leaning around me again so she can meet Juliet's eyes. Do you chuck books at people who approach you carrying flowers? Of course not. Juliet grumbles. Then she gives the table a smirk. I value books too much. Some of the women chuckle, and most at least crack a smile misses. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Who's been throwing me disgruntled looks ever since I sit down. Glares the fabric in her hands. Suddenly, the quilter's comments from the day Warner escorted me to lunch come rushing back. I don't associate with dogs. At the time, I thought she meant my mastiff. Now, I bet all the softest flannel in Minnie's closet that she wasn't referring to Bruce. Guess I found another townsperson in the know. Just not an ally. Part 50 Zoe well, Ms. Hanson says, bringing attention back to her. Maybe you just haven't met the right man. My son, for instance. Juliet's lips flatten, and she doesn't respond. Courtney swoops in with a wicked smack. I'm single. Why haven't you ever set me up with your son? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. The woman scowls at Courtney. Because you already dated my son and broke his heart. She growls. Did I? Wait, who's your son? Frederick. Her face has turned the same bright red as Courtney's vodka cranberry. Frederick. The wolf seems to mull the name over, as if the memory of him is hard to recall. Oh, Freddie. She settles back in her seat. Well, I wouldn't call what we did dating. Juliet snorts up half her drink. And the promise. Hanson gasps, reaching her hand toward her throat as if expecting to find a string of pearls to clutch. Courtney, Amy, unofficial leader of the Sip and Stitch gathering, uses a warning tone even though I swear I catch a quiver at the corner of her mouth. Let's keep the discussion of other members' offspring PG-rated. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Okay, Amy. But the werewolf immediately leans over to whisper in my ear. Freddie is selfish in the sack. I spent a good 15 minutes explaining the importance of quid pro quo as it relates to C. unalingeth. Better off with a vibrator. Oh, Juliet, dear, are you feeling all right? Some of the women at the table stare at the librarian with concern-etching wrinkles in their brows. My friend seemed distressed, with her hands covering her face, shoulders shaking. A passerby might think she was quietly sobbing. However, sitting next to her, I make out the muffled sound of unsuccessfully stifled giggles. Courtney isn't the best at whispering. I'm fine. Juliet finally chokes out Ms. Hanson's knuckles are white on her knitting needles, and I consider if I need to escort Courtney home so she doesn't end up murdered in an alley with crafting supplies. And you... The tightness in her voice makes the question sound like a threat. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Hanson nods. Are you dating? I shit. Shit. Dating. One step away from a relationship. Then on the fast track to commitment. This isn't a question I thought I'd have to answer. But, once again, Courtney comes to the rescue. Kind of. She's fucking Courtney. Amy chides. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She's holding hands with Warner Jameson. Okay, I guess I can deal with that description for now. I think Juliet is going to pass out if she tries any harder to suppress her laughter. I'm fine with being the butt of a joke if it makes my friend more comfortable. Then Ms. Hanson takes a long sip from her white wine, before putting her full attention on her project. Matchmaking is officially off the table. After a minute or two of awkward silence passes, side conversations start back up, and Courtney seems content to bedazzle her boots. Juliet is more relaxed now that the spotlight is off her and after the fits of hilarity Courtney put her through. And Amy pulls the librarian out further by asking about the latest bestsellers. After another sip of my drink, I relax back in my chair, estimating how many rows I have left. That's a fun pattern. Courtney reaches out to touch the scarf I'm finishing. Her finger traces the raised design repeated along the length of the scarf. The symbol is simple. 2 triangles, each bisect at a single corner, almost like a bow tie. I realize I incorporated it without thought. Crocheting is often like that for me, an activity I can do instinctually as my mind relaxes or focuses on something else. I hope Warner likes it. To this is for him. You made it, which means he'll love it. Courtney smirks, then her expression softens. How are you adjusting? Her quiet question has me meeting her gaze. There's a quick flash of black, and I realize she just gave me a glimpse of her wolf, clarifying the underlying meaning of her question. How are you adjusting to the whole mythical creatures are real thing? Getting better. Not great at first. I hook my yarn and debate saying more. After a second, I admit. Normally, I talk about life changes with my therapist. This time I'm the one who tries to convey extra meaning with my gaze. At her slight nod, I know she gets it. Normal therapists aren't equipped to deal with a werewolf discussion. My eyes trace over the table, and I wonder how many of the women here know. An idea forms. Are there any therapists in town? Courtney smiles and tilts her chin toward the leader of the club. Amy has a practice, and I keep my voice low serves all populations. After another subtle nod, the woman leans in close, and I discover Courtney does know how to whisper properly. Her partner is Tack. Something small and happy flares in my chest. A little glow. Something like hope. Part 51 Zoe. I don't spot Warner when I first pull up to the construction site. Based off the man I do see, I can look forward to a sweaty version of the werewolf. Nothing to complain about there. I park next to a line of other trucks and check the time. I'm early. Dust kicks up when I jump down from the cab of my truck. I debate waiting for Warner to come to me, but figure as long as I don't wander into the actual construction zone, there's no harm in me getting a peek. Plus, I want to see where Warner works. We've been holding hands, as Courtney so charmingly put it, for over a week now, and I'm curious about the other aspects of his life. As I get closer to the skeleton of the house, there's the sound of power tools and people calling out to each other. A wall is raised from the ground with ropes and muscle. The whole process is fascinating. I know how to make smaller things and, compared to a lot of people, I'd be considered quite handy, but putting together an entire house, now that's impressive. This lunch date is starting off nicely. So of course, some asshole has to go and ruin it by letting out a wolf whistle. Briefly, I hope I misheard, or that the sound came from Warner. But when I glance toward the perpetrator, I catch a stranger leering at me. Hey, sweetheart. Something you need to help you with. A shudder slides down my spine. The guy assigning me a nickname would be annoying on its own. But there's an extra level of gross because sweetheart is what my mom calls me. I don't need some strange man yelling the image at me, trying to ignore the creep. I scan the different hard hat, wearing men, hating that one creep has ruined my joy at watching something being built. And like all assholes, the guy chooses to double down. Gonna play hard to get. Don't worry. I like a hunt. The skeevy guy approaches me, wearing a smile with an air of malice lingering at the edges. Werewolf. I'm not sure how I know, but I do. There's something similar in the way the man moves to how I've seen Warner walk. To my agent extraordinaire, Madame Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Warner has never stalked me like prey before. Fearful fingers clench my gut, encouraging me to retreat to my truck and lock the doors. But then I would be prey. The man is only a few feet away, his eyes slipping between blue and black, a triumphant grin curling Cheshire, like across his stubble, covered cheeks. Despite the facial hair, I can see now that he's young, probably barely old enough to drink. Not that it matters. If anything, young men are more dangerous. What is a pretty thing like you hanging around here for? Looking for some fun. He's about to step into my space, and my mind flips between fight or flight. I won't be prey. Before he can loom over me, I step forward, staring straight into his eyes. Do I know you? What? He stutters steps with hesitation. You look really familiar. I put on my deep thoughtful face, then snap my fingers as if I just remembered something. I know. You're the guy who's bad in bed. He was not expecting that. Horrified shock slackens his face. Exactly what I was hoping for. I came here to meet Warner for lunch, not be accosted by a horny, power-tripping werewolf. What the fooros? A man with thick brown hair, streaked through with grey, strides toward us. weary, and coated in authority. Not visibly, but it spills off him in waves as he walks toward us. My aggressor turns to the man. Red-faced, sir. That's when I see, just behind the man's shoulder. He stares at me with wide eyes and a bobbing mouth as if he can't decide whether to grin or not. Guess he heard my comments to his co-worker. Is something going on here? The older man glances between the two of us before his eyes come to rest on me. There's no accusation in them, just scrutiny, no. Ross is quick to assure the man, who I notice now has a vest with the label of foreman. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I straighten my spine, glaring all three men down. The thing that was supposed to be going on here was me picking up my friend for lunch. I gesture at Warner, but instead, I have to deal with, unable to find a descriptor to apply to Ross. I simply let my disgust infuse the next word. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Ross begins. Yeah. Me. I cut him off. I had your pathetic number the second you walked my way. You ever try hunting me again? I'll hit you with a face full of bare mace. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He bares his teeth, stepping forward. There's a growl and a sudden powerful presence at my back. But this is my fight, and I can't back down. Growing up with four brothers made me tough, or stupid. Jury is still out. I pull my lips back for my own. Puny, human teeth. Getting up in his space yet again. Try it, Wolf. See what happens. Ross freezes mid, threatening move. His eyes growing wary. Back off. The command cuts through the air between us. Almost a wall. I've never heard Warner's voice so deep and menacing before. His warm arm encircles my shoulders. For a second, I'm furious, thinking his command is directed at me. But when I glance up, his glare is all for the asshole. Good. Glad to know he doesn't automatically side with his packmate. Ross opens his mouth, but a sharp throat clearing from the foreman has the young pup snapping his jaw shut. Back to work, the older man says, aiming the words at Ross. I think the guy might argue with his boss, but after a pause he shrugs and stalks away. Yours we gonna. I meet the man's intense gaze without flinching, giving him a brief nod. And you are Mason Jameson. My eyes flick to Warner, who offers a tight smile. My uncle. You look like your mother. Mason offers. The comment surprises me. In the past, I've only ever thought of how my complexion falls closer to my father's. My mom is blonde-haired, blue-eyed, while Dad and I are brunettes with brown eyes. But I guess the residents of Pine Falls have only ever met one of the people who made me. Did you know her? Warner's uncle shrugs, then walks away, his gait hurried but still containing an air of authority. The tension of the moment lingers. Warner is the first to pierce it. Did you tell Ross he's a bad fuck? I roll my eyes. If you and your uncle hadn't showed up, he probably would have pulled up a list of references. The excitement of the construction site having worn off, I pivot and start back toward my truck. Even though most people would say I won that confrontation, I still feel gross. The leering weight of Ross's eyes left an invisible residue on my skin. I need a shower. Zoe Warner starts, but I whirl on him, unwilling to be scolded for defending myself. He talked at me like I was a thing. My temper rises at the memory, and I glare at Warner, suddenly not feeling too warm and fuzzy toward men in general. So, I gave him a taste of his own medicine, and I hope he chokes on the bitter taste. He deserved it. We stare at each other for a moment before Warner nods. You're right. You agree that he deserved it, yes. Warner scoops up one of my hands and presses a kiss to my palm before offering me a smirk with burning eyes. But I was referring to the first night we met. I try to remember what exactly he might be referencing. Warner doesn't let me struggle for long. You're way more than kinda intimidating. Part 50 to Warner. When Zoe drops me back off at work after lunch, I'm smiling. An hour of eating and getting her to laugh is a good way to spend my break. But my happiness evaporates the second I see Ross's scowl across the worksite. It's aimed at Zoe's bumper. If Ross were a human guy, he'd probably keep his anger to himself. Maybe throw out some insulting comments the next time he crosses paths with Zoe. But Ross isn't human. He's wolf. And what's more, he's an asshole. From his angry expression, he's still smarting from Zoe's put down. That means next time the two of them are in the same room, things could get a lot worse than some harsh words. Werewolves hold grudges. I've seen it plenty of times over my life. Most often it's something small, like how Onion ever misses a chance to stick a mocking note on the back of Trent, the guy who harassed Isaac in middle school for being scrawny. To this day, half the time I cross paths with Trent in town, he's got a yellow sticky note on his back that says he's dense or wears lacy panties. Annoying, but harmless. Moose, owner of the Rabbit Hole, heard one of the pack members complaining about the selection of beers he had on tap. It's been 6 months and the bartender still won't serve the guy anything other than water. Hilarious, but still harmless. Courtney had a different experience. Twin brothers Jordan and Funny remind me a lot of Ross. Young wolves that see their powers as proof they're badass. One of them, maybe both, was interested in Courtney. I wasn't there when she turned them down, but whatever she said made it clear there was zero chance. Instead of accepting her decision and moving on, the brothers took the rejection as a personal offense. They bad-mouthed her to her face and behind her back, never within earshot of Roderick. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He would have shut them up fast. One night I almost went after them, but Courtney stopped me. She claimed they weren't worth it, laughing with her usual don't give a fuck attitude that only seemed to piss them off more. Then, one night, the pair followed Courtney out of the bar. A hunter herself, she sensed their intentions. She could have called for help, but she later told me that she was tired of their shit and ready to put an end to it. With a few years on the twins, Courtney could shift faster than either. She did, and in Wolf and my friend beat the shit out of the pair. When some of the pack finally picked up on the commotion and went to check on the noise, they found the men out cold and Courtney with a bloody muzzle. No permanent damage was done, but now Jordan and trot their eyes whenever she enters the room, because violence is the warning certain wolves need. Maybe I should have told Zoe not to speak up like that against other werewolves, but I hate the idea of trying to stifle her fire. And I hate even more that one of my pack members made her uncomfortable. The woman who waltzed into a biker bar with a bag full of crafts is more badass than the piece of shit who hasn't learned what no means. The memory of him stalking toward her, as if she was something to be hunted, has my wolf growing, and the sound spills out of my chest. All the workers on the build site pause. Uncle Mason employs wolves only, so they're all pack members. Every one of them knows me, and barely have seen me get angry about anything. I'm sure the sound of my rage is a shock to all. When they all freeze in their work, Ross finally looks to me, from a smirk on his face. I know he doesn't take me seriously. Why should he? Roderick is the pack leader, exuding strength and discipline. My mom is second strongest in the pack. Our beta. Then there's Uncle Mason, quiet and dangerous, but I'm the easy-going member of the family, the guy with a smile and a joke. I don't get into it with people, because I've never needed to. But if Ross's actions go unchecked, Zoe will be in danger. He'll think he has a right to an attribution. I could get Roderick to lay down an edict, but I want to handle this. When it comes to Zoe's relationship to the pack, I'm her protector, and Ross threatens what's mine. I approach him, my movements smooth and powerful, imbued as they are with the strength of my wolf that begs to be let free. All to put this piece of shit in his place. That bitch piss you off too, Jameson. Ross throws out when I'm only a few steps away. If you won't keep her on a leash, I will. It's all I can do to stop myself from attacking him immediately. I let snarl tear from my throat. When I speak, the word comes out deep, steeped in the magic of the pack. He steps back, shocked. What? I don't need to repeat myself. Everyone here heard. Uncle Mason steps up behind me, lending his authority to the situation. You have been challenged. Name the time and place. This is ridiculous. Ross glances around at everyone nearby, as if searching for support. Someone to laugh with him. No one does. She's just a human. He throws his hands up, pretending exasperation when I can tell I've rattled him. Tonight, in the woods behind the rabbit hole. With that he stalks off to the other end of the worksite. For the rest of my shift, I keep my distance. Not that it does anything to lessen my anger. I'm hefting double the load any human man could handle when a voice cuts through my angry haze. Maybe we should get you mad more often. Never seen you work so hard. My uncle says, appearing behind me without a sound. He's good at that. Has the creeping up unexpectedly on. People skill down perfect. Luckily, I'm used to it, so I don't do more than flinch. If you think insulting Zoe is going to get you a better worker, you'll find yourself a man short in the future. I know my ease at mingling with the human population in the town is not the norm for most members of the pack, but you'd think they could at least be civil. You like her, the gunner girl. I turned to give Mason my full attention. Something in his voice gave away that this might not be a casual conversation. I do. I trail off, but not because I don't have any words to describe her. I have too many. Funny, sweet. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfading pursuits, enthusiasm. Odd, beautiful, brave, sexy. The list goes on. But I think my uncle would wander off after a certain amount of adjectives, before I can figure out how to end the sentence. Mason is already nodding in a distracted way. He stares over my shoulder. I knew her mother. Selena. He waves his hand to indicate all the descriptors I didn't list, but as though he read them in my pause too. It shouldn't surprise me that my family knew Zoe's. Pine Falls isn't big, and apparently Selena Gunner spent 18 years of her life here. But from what Mason just said, I'm not sure knew is a strong enough word to describe whatever relationship they had. Did you to date? Hell, this is weird. My father died when I was young, so Mason took on that role. We don't really talk about women, especially not the mother of the girl I'm falling for. He offers me a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. She left. He shrugs and walks away. I think Selena Gunner broke my uncle's heart. Part 53's Zoe may be a sexy demon lady, I murmur to myself. Pencil poised over my sketchpad. Sunlight spills in from the window above the kitchen sink, bathing the cabin in a warm afternoon glow. Good light for my current project. Different ideas flit through my mind. I'm imagining a pine-up girl from hell, maybe lounging on a bed of fire. Just need to make sure it has a nice curved shape that'll sit evenly on the surface of a motorcycle helmet. I want my design to be perfect. Badass. Something the wearer will be proud to show off. Because the only way to put this art on display will be if the guy actually wears his helmet. Some people might think I'm overly cautious, harping on this helmet thing. But I know I'm right. Mom doesn't talk about her childhood much. She lost her dad at a pretty young age, so I guess there wasn't a lot she could tell me about my grandfather. But there is one thing I know. How he died. My grandfather went on a late night ride on his motorcycle and got into an accident. She never said exactly what part of the crash caused his death, but I know that one of the few rules she insisted my dad follow was to always wear his helmet while riding. The same went for my brothers and me when we took out our bicycles or a set of roller skates. She wasn't mean about it. Mom would walk up to me, cup my face in her hands, and press a kiss to my forehead. Then she'd whisper, I love this head more than anything in the world. I don't want to see anything bad happen to it. Please, wear a helmet. Who can say no to that? None of us ever did. So here I am, trying to jizz up a boring black helmet, crafting it into something worner doesn't just feel obligated to put on. I want him to be excited about it. Who am I kidding? He's not a demon lady kind of guy. I tap my pencil on the paper. Then it hits me. So obvious. I laugh at myself. I know what kind of guy Warner is. He's a wolf. An hour later, the design is sketched, and the outline painted on a helmet I picked up from the motorcycle shop in town. I wasn't about to ask Warner for his and have him ride unprotected while I worked. Plus, this way I can keep it as a surprise. Just as I'm mixing paints to get the perfect shade of amber, Cindy Lauper's voice fades away, and I can hear the click of the cassette tape coming to a stop. The poppy beat of Girls Just Want to Have Fun was apparently the last on this playlist. When a younger version of my mom introduced it, I wasn't surprised. I can only imagine how that song spoke to her, a girl homeschooled in a small Colorado town by a recluse of a mother. I groan out a stretch before standing up to pick my next round of music. The tapes clack as I finger through them. There doesn't seem to be any particular order. I've listened to maybe a third and have had everything from adolescent version of my mother introducing 70s ballads, all the way to late teens mom jamming out to the 80s glam rock. Her intros get better with time, but they're nowhere near the smooth delivery she has on her current morning show. Since there's no point in looking, I close my eyes and pick a tape at random from the side of the box I haven't dipped into yet. With the next round of music queued up, I move back to the kitchen table and my paints. Good morning, University of Denver. Well, good morning to those of you who aren't still asleep. Hungover from last night's Sigma Tau Delta Rega. Smooth, practiced, engaging. This is more like the mom I know today. That, plus the mention of her alma mater, throws me off. Rumor has it that a few members of our illustrious football team were spotted streaking across campus around midnight. So this one goes out to them. Jermaine Stewart's classic We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off fills the cabin, but I'm still too befuddled to enjoy the humorous choice. This is not the recording of a pre-teen girl holed up with her boombox in a treehouse, playing at being a radio DJ. This is my mom in an actual studio, the one she had a part-time job at when she was in college. But I know for a fact that the summer after high school, Selena Gunner packed up her truck, left Pine Falls, and never came back. And if what Mom told me is true, Grandma Minnie only came up to Denver on the days each of her grandchildren were born. She stayed long enough to give Mom a crochet blanket before she turned right back around. So how did this recording end up in Minnie's cabin? Could Mom have mailed it? Maybe as a strange kind of olive branch. I stand to pace the main room of the cabin as I think no. Mom definitely said she didn't contact her mother until she was pregnant with a Brown. And that was after she graduated. An idea occurs, the possibility of its ending an uncomfortable shock of denial through me. But I have to know. I pause the tape and flick the settings over to FM. Static. I scan through all the channels. And I get nothing. Same with AM. But that's what I expected. I'd only hope differently. After carrying all my music around in a smartphone for so long, the boombox seems awkward and heavy as I lug it out the back door. Bruce lounges on the porch, soaking up the sun, and barely gives a twitch as I hurry past him. The air smells like damp earth baking in the sun. A chill rides the breeze, raising the hair on my exposed arms. I ignore the beautiful hints of autumn, focusing on my destination and what it might reveal. Climbing into the treehouse while clutching the boombox is awkward, but despite swaying a few times, I managed to get both it and myself through the entry in the floor without damage. Luckily, I had gotten tired of unplugging and plugging it back in and bought some batteries. I sit cross-legged on the old wooden floor, hesitating with my fingers poised on the buttons. The stereo seems to gaze back at me, its speakers like wide bug eyes, tempting me, mocking me, shaming me. I flip the on switch. Static. There's a tremor in my fingers as I press the button to scan for stations. A second goes by, before suddenly, a voice spills out. The best deal in downtown Denver. Come get your new car. The stereo scans again, landing on a station playing Ariana Grande's latest hit. It scans again, finding a classical music station, It counts again. And again. At some point, a set of familiar numbers flash on the little digital screen. I attended the University of Denver too. Occasionally, I turned on the school's radio station to see what they were playing. Today, whoever the jockey is, has chosen some classic rock, but I don't bother to focus on the lyrics. My heart cracks, little fissures in the organ spiking like splinters in my chest, because in this moment, I realize my theory as truth. In the same way that I've been making this tedious climb to get service, so did my grandmother more than 30 years ago. A woman too proud to mend fences with her daughter crawled into a treehouse just to hear that daughter's voice. Part 50 for I press the off button, needing silence to deal with my realization. The stereo sits quietly, and I stare back at it. This was all that Minnie Gunner had for family in the last years of her life. No one visiting her, no one calling her. She only had the voice of her daughter, broadcasted from miles away. The pain of this knowledge makes my muscles cramp and my head ache. I curl up on the floor of the treehouse, folding under the weight of my sorrow and regret. Whatever I thought of my grandmother in the past, I assumed she didn't want to know any of us, that she was fine on her own, that family didn't mean anything to her. But I know different now. A woman who doesn't care does not keep recordings of her daughter's voice. How many more tapes in that box are from a time after Mom left? How many times did Minnie crawl up into this treehouse to listen to her estranged daughter's broadcasts? Oh God, I'm so sorry. I moan the words into my hands, feeling the tears coming, the sobs rising from deep in my chest. What kept her away? But I think I know. To our agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I can imagine her drowning in it, just like I do. The darkness of the water are a barrier between her and the person she loved most in the world. What a horrible joke, for this woman to have been a stranger to me my whole life, and only through her death am I getting to know her. The items at her house reveal glimpses of a strong, capable woman who stored away love for her family the same way she jarred preserves, with dedication, and so that only she knew what was contained within. I'm not sure how long I let myself cry for her. It's more than the loss of a person that hurts me. It's the loss of the one person in my family who I see myself in. Each piece of Minnie I discover holds a sense of familiarity, as if the same set of tools was used to create us both. And I cry for the loss of love. I could have loved her. I know it. If only I had gotten a chance to know her. If I had taken that chance. But none of us took it. Minnie didn't reach out to us, but we also didn't reach out to her. Mom wasn't a gatekeeper. She never denied us access to our grandmother. Why didn't I know you? I whisper to the boombox, as if it will transport my message to whatever plane of existence my grandmother floats in now. I've never been religious, but I can see the appeal. Wouldn't it be nice to know that I haven't lost my chance to know my grandma, to love her, but all I have is this life, and Minnie is gone from it. Loneliness creeps up on me like a jungle cat, slowly stalking me, then pouncing with a bone, crushing force that leaves me gasping on my breath. My fingers scramble for my pocket, rooting around until I find my phone. I dial each one of their numbers in turn, starting with the oldest. Abraham, no answer. Byron, no answer. Carver, no answer. Panic has started to set in, and my thumb feels heavy as I try Donovan. On the second ring I finally connect. Are you home? My brother's question has me tearing up all over again, but I try not to let on how weepy I am when I respond. Not yet. Still in Pine Falls. Suddenly found myself missing Denver though, and thought I'd give you all a call. How's it been without me? Hell. Seriously. Byron broke up with that girl he was seeing, the one who bartends at McConnell's, and now we were all scared to get a drink after our set. I let out a watery chuckle at the thought of my 4 brothers. Too awkward to ask for a beer because the bartender is glaring at them. They're a talented crew, all taking after our dad who works as a studio musician. The four of them have their own band, aptly called the Gunners. I refer to them as the Jonas Brothers, which annoys them to no end, so I never plan to stop. Tell Byron to stop dating people at our favorite spots. Byron is a serial monogamist. He gets invested super fast. Grand gestures, romantic dates, weekend trips. Girls and guys all over Denver have fooled themselves into believing they're his forever. Unfortunately, the glitter of a new relationship wears off fast, and when Byron realizes they're not the one, he ends it. I know for a fact that he's not trying to be insensitive. He really does want to find his forever person. I just don't think he knows what a forever person looks like. He never listens. Darlin groans. We need you back to keep him in line, and to order our drinks for us. Good to know you miss your beer buffer. I joke. Come on. You know everyone falls to pieces without you. His words make my gut clench in a weird combination of happiness and misery. Hold on a sec. I'll call them over. You're all together. Thursday is rugby night. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My brothers usually play a pick-up rugby game Thursday afternoons. I glance at the time on my phone, realizing it's already after 6. Guess I cried for longer than I thought. It's not long before a chorus of male voices spill through the speaker, all of them talking at once. When are you coming back? What's Spinefalls like? Why don't you call more? I let them shout out their questions, waiting for them to give me a moment to answer. When they finally quiet down, I take my turn at the conversation. We spend the next few minutes catching up, them telling me about all the shenanigans each other have gotten into, me talking about some of my projects and assuring them that I'm not staying in Pine Falls forever. Aware that I interrupted their game, I let them go, even though all 4 of them try to insist I stay on the line. When the phone call ends, I find myself so exhausted, I struggle to sit up. The combination of crying and wrangling my brothers over the phone drained every bit of energy from me, so I stay on the floor of the treehouse, staring up at the patchy shingled roof. Despite their exhausting chatter, there was one underlying message I couldn't help but pick up through that call. They love me. I'm not forgotten out here in this cabin. At least, not yet. Part 55 Warner. Other than some briefs, I'm bare to the chill autumn night. Not that the cold bothers me much. I run hot. We all do. Still, I'd rather be almost all the way to without clothes in Zoe's cabin than out here behind the rabbit hole. But she won't be safe until this is over. Plus, I plan on heading to her place after this. I just need to make sure not to get too bloody or bruised. My goal is to keep this challenge in the pack. No reason for Zoe to know. I think I can pull it off. Especially because for this challenge, we're remaining in human form. Fights in wolf form are usually fights to the death. Those are for serious crimes and would mainly be Roderick's responsibility. But Ross's decision to fuck with Zoe is a different kind of crime. And that's where wolves differ from humans. If a human man approached Zoe the way Ross did, with the same outcome of no one being physically hurt, then the police would do shit about it. Human law doesn't seem to understand how minds work. How intimidation can take away someone's sense of safety. How insults can fester and turn into violence. I won't let Ross retaliate against Zoe. If he wants violence, then I'll be the one to give it to him. I bounce on the balls of my feet and shake out my arms, warming up my muscles. All the while, I watch Ross across the clearing. He's laughing with a couple of the other young pack members. He still isn't taking this seriously. The challenge might have surprised him. They don't happen too often, but I can tell he thinks this is going to be like a normal weekend brawl between 2 wolves that have had too much to drink. A situation he finds himself in almost every other night. Ross thinks because I like to smile and laugh that I'll be easy enough to beat. And I realize how little my pack knows me. I've grown up in Pine Falls, been around these people my whole life, and they still only see what I want them to. Suddenly, Roderick is in front of me. He's vain, probably go for a roundhouse to show off. But I've seen him land it. My brother's arms are crossed over his chest, and he stares down at me. He is maybe 3 inches on me, but the power pressing of him always seems to add an extra foot. You worried about me? I give him a casual grin that covers the urge to scowl. Try not to mess him up too bad. If Russ can't run tomorrow, he'll be held to have around for the next month. Roderick knows me. He can see my fury under my joking veneer. He's also my regular sparring partner when both of our wolves are restless. My brother knows how fast I am, how good I am at landing a punch, but even he doesn't understand fully what Zoe means to me. What I'll do for her. We'll see, is all I say. Roderick stares a moment longer before giving the barest hint of a nod into the middle of the clearing. All side conversations halt. The pack leader holds attention without effort. When our father died, the pack was left without a head wolf. The next mantle could have gone to anyone in the pack. There's no inheritance rule. It's all tied up in a magical force. A lot of people expected our mama or Uncle Mason to be the next leader. But almost immediately, a change came over Roderick. Already 6'3". He seemed to grow taller, tower above everyone else. He was 18, barely an adult, but still had people turning to him. The responsibility fell on his shoulders to care for the Pinefall wolves, and I have never seen him falter. But he also changed that day, and I couldn't help feeling like I somehow lost my brother, or at least, the slightly more carefree version I'd grown up with. He belongs to more than just my family now. Challenge has been declared. Offense given and threats made toward a resident of Pine Falls. Roderick's eyes flick over to me, the only warning before he tacks on an et to the charge. At a potential future mate. To where agent extraordinaire, Wadeline Nogan. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Ross shouts as I try to keep all shock off my face. The pack leader basically just gave his blessing for me to officially pursue Zoe. I thought I was going to have to put up a hell of an argument to even get him to listen to me. It's not unheard of for a werewolf to take a human mate. We'd probably die out if we didn't. But it's rare, and usually the human has been around wolves for most of their lives. They aren't outsiders. Like Zoe. What could have changed my stubborn brother's mind? This is bullshit. Russ growls. There's wariness in his eyes. He thought this was a fight over him insulting my friend. Not my mate. Even the most easy-going wolf will tear out someone's throat when it comes to protecting their partner. How was I supposed to know? Maybe you should stop being a dick to all women, just to be safe. This comment comes from the spectator. I glance over to see Courtney has backed to pick up to the edge of the woods, dropped the tailgate, and unfolded a lawn chair in the bed of the truck. She raises her beer. Go get him. Rip off the limb. Hey, Ross glares at her. She smirks right back before chanting, less hands, less ass grabbing. Fuck him up. There are snickers from some of those assembled. Mainly the females. Looks like Ross doesn't have many fans among the women of our pack. Challenges are rare occurrences. Too many indicate instability in a pack. I can't help wondering how many women Ross has asked enough to make them feel uncomfortable. But not enough for them to think it worth a formal challenge. I wonder how many here wish they could swap places with me. Even more of a reason not to hold back.